Welcome back to Business Daily on Trust TV. Let's get to our conversation this morning. Joining me virtually to continue is Dr. Aliu Ilias, an economist and a development expert. He's joining us here virtually from here in Abuja, actually. Now, Doctor, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. So I'm just going to talk about, what happened yesterday, the MPC meetings, and rates have been maintained. But if you're out there and you don't know the situation, this is what has happened yesterday. At the MPC meeting yesterday, the 303rd session, the MPC retained the monetary policy rate at 27.0%, leaving interest rate unchanged for now. Now, other monetary policy tools also remained unchanged. Liquidity ratio held at 30%. Cash reserve ratio maintained 45% for commercial banks, 16% for merchant banks, 75% on non-TSA public sector deposits. Standard facilities corridor was revised to plus 50/minus 450 basis points around the MPR. The CBN noted that maintaining the rate at this level would help sustain disinflation and support foreign exchange and macroeconomic stability. Doctor, do you agree with that sentiment of the CBN as to the reason why they maintain the rates?
Right. Thank you so much for having me once again. Definitely, they maintain uh, the 27% interest rate, but they did not maintain the corridor. And not maintaining the corridor has a lot of meaning. And if you also see the cash reserve ratio was also moved from 50 to 45. So let's dissect the corridor, because people don't know the impact of the corridor on the economy. So now, if before now it was 27% plus 250 minus 250 corridor. So what does that simply mean before? That simply means that that corridor simply means 2.5%. So if they are saying that it is 27%, you add 2.5, making the lending rate to be 29.5. So when you also deposit with CBN, you also have to do minus 250. Simply means that you are going to do 24.5, right? When you are actually depositing with them. So now let's bring it down to what they have actually done now. So now the asymmetric corridor is now minus 50 plus 450. So I can tell you authoritatively that they have actually reduced the interest rate through the corridor. So, for instance, now it is minus 50. That minus 50 simply means that you have to, when you are lending, I mean, when when the banks are lending to people, it will now be 26. It's not be 26.5. Right? Do you see that? That means that's lower down.
Okay.
When also banks are depositing with the CBN, they are now discouraged from bringing money to CBN. CBN want them to take the money and go and give borrow people outside. So now 22.5, because look at minus 450 simply means that you are now going to gain, on it, as that it is 22.5%, not 27%. So if you look at this holistically, they did not maintain directly. They have used that to ease the challenges of interest rates, which is a positive one. Remember, I'm sure they are also having cautious optimism simply because this is December. December, naturally, things tend to be a bit higher. So they also want to maintain what they have achieved so far in terms of inflation, so that we can actually use that to cross the unit time. So I think that's what they actually are looking at. So I can assure you, even from the community, that definitely is going to be they're going to ease more come February or so, by the time they do the next MPC. So for me, I think they've used style to actually ease it, but they are conscious to not to erode the gain that they have achieved. Remember, most of us are accusing them that they are sacrificing growth for inflation. So they are very conscious around that area.
Thank you, first of all, so much for that clarification and a bit of education on what the corridor means and its impact. Now, it's now boils down to the lending facilities, the credit banks, the commercial banks. Do you think they would actually follow through? And how will the CBN see to it that they actually follow through with that corridor?
Now, I think this is positive for banks. Banks are going to go and check it now. Banks will actually want to do more because if banks continue to save money with central bank, what they will gain on it is about 22.5%. But if they go out to actually learn more, they are likely to get is more. So they are going to weigh their option, which one is better, you know, for me to give money out because the major aim of bank is to make profits. So they either make profit from giving money to people, by making interest on it, or by depositing with banks, with central banks, with apex banks, and gain more. So definitely they have to choose the one that pays them more, which is the one that actually simply means that they are going to gain more by giving money to people. The only challenge now is the lag time. When you bring out policy, before it will trickle down to the market. That's what. But for me, I think this is positive for banks, and this will encourage them to actually borrow Nigerians more money. Perhaps, MSME that needs money. The only thing we keep canvassing for banks is central banks should be sectorially intentional. So if you say, okay, let's look at MSME. If you give MSME, this is the corridor you benefit from. If you give agriculture, this corridor you benefit from. But if you give to service sector, this is the corridor that would discourage you, sort of. This would have attract more into the expected sector of the economy.
Okay, so like you've actually said that the last time I think you were here in the studio with us about having a different sectors for maybe manufacturers, it's different kind of interest rates, incentives for them to make it possible for them to access credit. Now, you mentioned something about we're going into the December. Now, do you have what do you think would happen? Do you think that this numbers, this maintaining, in any way would affect the spendings and the that would take place come December?
Right. So I think this policy would have availed banks with much more liquidity. So that simply means that there will be much more liquidity in circulations. Now, if you look at December generally comes with its own liquidity, such as what we call dirty December. Recall that if you look at it, I look at a particular analysis by one business school and discover that they are analyzing the expected income during dirty December. It is clear that people in the diaspora will come to celebrate their Unitide period season in Nigeria. And we also have a lot of films that is going to be premiere, going to be launched during that period. We also have some of our musicians that are coming to do some things. We also have some carnival, some festivals that will come along that December. So in as much as there's much more spending, we only say yes, let there be more diaspora spend. So there may be much more liquidity in terms of looking at the Unitide December period in Nigeria.
Now, do you believe that this rate hold will actually sustain growth for our economy?
Right. So, like I rightly said at the earlier stage, some of us fight hard that it's wrong for you to be using what's the term now in economics, to be using a particular method to actually solve economic problem. You must make sure that you are not sacrificing one area for the other. When you start sacrificing growth for inflation becomes the problem. And we have seen that consequently, we have seen rate of inflation coming down, which is a very possible. It is not only Nigeria. If you look at it globally, that is the trend. If you look at Ghana, they are doing about 8%. Kenya, very, very low. Egypt doing about 12.5. So it's normal that we expect. Remember, economic generally is cyclical. Sometimes it goes up and it's actually come down and goes up and come down. So these are the things we must actually look very. So I think the trend now is that the inflation rates are coming down. Remember, some volatility cannot be handled by you, but the judgment you get from it will inform you of the decision. So major thing we should always be focusing on is our decision making. Is it the right one that we actually put it? So I think with what they are doing now, and according to the communique, they are going to continue to ease the NPR so as to attract much more investment and foreign direct investment into Nigeria.
All right, just a last question. This month, we've seen that the inflation was down by 16%. With that number, how much leeway does the CBN have for monetary, policy rate cuts?
We have a 16.05 inflation now, and hopefully we can continue to see downward trend in this November. By the time they release November on by December. So by the time we see it, we will now expect that, no doubt, by February, the CBN are going to bring down the, because for me, I'm thinking by February, they should do about 100 basis points. Maybe it will come to like 26, percent. Maybe by the time they see the way economy is actually going. My major concern is even beyond the number. My major concern, my major concern is about the responsiveness, the elasticity, and how it affects the well-being and the purchasing power of people. Because if you look at the Nigerian economy now, food commodities are coming down, but people seem to have demand problem in terms of purchasing power and disposable income. So I think we should find a way that this will trickle down. And because those things that are actually happening does not directly affect transportation, system and energy sector. So I think we should look at it how. And that's why I look at is it GDA or SDDA that Ministry of Finance actually launched, to see how they could trickle down the gain of inflation downward trend to the betterment of Nigeria and the citizen.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Aliu Ilias, for your insights on the outcome of the 303rd MPC meeting.
Thank you for having me.
And that's Dr. Aliu Ilias. And you've heard what he said. Although they maintained the rate at 27%, however, take note of the corridors. They brought it down, and in a way that has, brought down the interest rates in a certain way. So if you can maybe go to your banks now and get some loans and seek to help your business do well in the Yuletide season. That's the much I for the program this morning. My name is Chiamaka Nwafor. Same time, same place tomorrow. Bye for now.